So in this video, I'm going to share 6 reframing techniques that allow you to shift your perspective away from so-called vanity metrics of likes and plays and downloads to looking at your music in a different way and looking at where the value is really and what you should be concentrating on. So you've been working away at your music. You've got some music that you finished, you're proud of, and you want to share. And so you decide you're going to put it up online to all of the music services. So you get yourself a DistroKid account and you upload all your music to the streaming services. And maybe you even put some things on SoundCloud, or you put all your music up on Bandcamp. So you've got your music everywhere, online, and you're just waiting for feedback, comments, plays, downloads, streams, people to buy your music, and nothing really happens. And so you keep consistently doing it, uploading more and more music, and still your audience is very low and you're hardly getting any plays. You know, it's eating away at your excitement. It's costing you money to have these services and put things up online. You might start to think, what's the point? Does anyone like my music? Is my music any good? And you're starting to doubt yourself. You're starting to wonder, what's the point? So I've done all these things over the last few years. I've shared my music on all the platforms that are available and attempted to build an audience for my music. But the truth is, it's a very competitive market. It's incredibly competitive. I think the statistic is something like 100,000 new tracks are uploaded to streaming services every day. 100,000 new tracks a day. So how is your track going to stand out in that? There's so much stuff going up all the time. There's so many people creating. It's very hard to stand out. It's very hard to build an audience. So I've been sharing my own music online for a few years now. And during that time, I've produced 21 albums of ambient music and field recording, which you can get on my Bandcamp site. And during that process of a lot of the time having very little or no audience for my music, I've learned a few techniques that have helped me with that whole process that allow you to shift your perspective away from those kind of metrics so that you feel better about what you're doing, feel more positive about it, and you can carry on doing it. If you've been here before, then welcome back. If you haven't been before, then my name's Mark. I'm a musician from the UK. And on my channel, I talk about all the gear that I use. I do tutorials about the gear that I use, the techniques that I use, sometimes deep dives into those things, sometimes quirky stuff. And I also talk about creativity, productivity, and how to remain sane while making music. So this ladybird here is going to help us by pointing at the one that we're currently talking about. So, number 1. Don't share your music. So it might seem a little bit extreme to say don't share your music, but in fact it is something to actually have a good think about, because sometimes you just think, oh, that's what everybody does. You finish music and you put it online and you share it, whether it's SoundCloud or streaming services or Bandcamp. But a lot of people don't share their music, and there's nothing wrong with that. People treat music and music making in all sorts of different ways. And I think the first thing to do is just check what it is you want from your music making. Perhaps you don't need to share anything. You don't need to get involved in that whole thing. You don't need to upload things. You don't need to even finish things. And you can just keep it as a hobby, or just play things to people in your life, in the real world. And don't worry about the online world at all. You know, and you might not be looking to make a living out of it, make any money out of it, get famous, get any recognition, nothing. You might not need any of those things. It might just be a personal thing for yourself, or for you and your friends. You know, all sorts of different ways of making music and reasons for making music. So number 1 is it's okay to not share your music. It's absolutely fine. So move Ladybird down. So number 2, choose the platforms you use. So number 2 is choose the platforms that you use. Choose them carefully. Now there's a tendency, and this is something that I've done, to just think, okay, I'm going to put my music up everywhere. I'm going to get a DistroKid account, or in my case, I've had a DistroKid account, but I've now got Ditto, which I use for distribution. So I've paid for that every year. And those distribution services allow you to upload your music to the hundreds of streaming services around the world. And then you can also put your music on Bandcamp, and you can put your music on SoundCloud. And it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work keeping all of those things up to date, you know, with your artwork, with all your tracks. And I realized over time that it really wasn't that necessary, because some platforms work better for different types of music. And in the years that I've had my music up on the streaming services, I've never really got much traction on there. I've hardly ever got any streams. And field recording particularly, I've had a lot of problems putting field recording up on the streaming services. And so ultimately, I've decided that the streaming services are just not worthwhile for me as a platform. And so I don't bother putting my music up on them anymore. So really, this is what I mean, is you have to really consider whether you need to put your music in lots of different places. When I first started uploading music, I used SoundCloud, and SoundCloud was a great place to first start uploading music online. Good community there, very easy to upload things, but it is quite expensive. It will cost you a bit of money each year. And so you're not going to make probably any money on SoundCloud, but it is good for community. Whereas a platform like Bandcamp, which is where I put all of my music and field recordings now, is free to use and very easy to put music up and down on. But it's hard to use their community features without an audience coming in from somewhere else. It's quite hard to build an audience just on Bandcamp. It's a really good idea to really have a close look at the platforms, maybe try them for a while, but you don't have to put your music on all the platforms that there are. You can just find out which ones work best for you. As I say, in my case, I don't bother with the streaming services anymore. I don't really bother with SoundCloud anymore, though I did early on. And I just put all my music up on Bandcamp now. So choose carefully the platforms that you use. It cuts down the amount of work that you have to do, and it actually feeds into number 3 as well. That's number 2. So, number 3, enjoy the freedom of having no audience. This might seem another strange one, but in fact, in the early days of sharing your music, when no one is actually really listening to your music, then having no audience can actually be quite beneficial. Once you start to get people listening to your music, you might feel that you have to provide something for them, a service for them. You know, if they've listened to something or downloaded something, you might feel that you have to kind of keep making music in that vein. Whereas when you don't have an audience at all, you can be a bit more open, you can experiment, you can try things, and you don't have to be so precious. When I first started out putting music online, I was learning, I was experimenting, and sometimes I would finish music, put it up, and then decide that I didn't really like it that much, so I wanted to take it down again. I regrouped a lot of my tracks quite often into different albums, and then I took down the old versions and uploaded new versions. And I think once you start getting people who are listening to things, who have maybe bought things off you, those opportunities to keep experimenting start to disappear. And sometimes it's only by doing things, putting them out there, that you kind of start to understand what you do and don't like. So it is a time, not having an audience, where you can really experiment and look at these types of things, particularly if you don't get involved with the streaming services early on, because while you can take down recordings from the streaming services and put them back up again, you can sometimes get yourself into a bit of a mess with that. So I would not advise, if you are still experimenting with album formats and you're not completely sure that you're going to leave things online, then I would tend to just use Bandcamp and SoundCloud to start with until you've got a little bit more certainty and maybe you're building a bit of an audience, because you don't want to get into a mess with the streaming services. So yeah, enjoy the freedom of having no audience. So that's number 3. So number 4, celebrate the small wins. What do I mean by this, celebrate the small wins? I think it's very easy to not realise what you're achieving along the process. When you first upload a track to, say, SoundCloud, you should spend a little time just congratulating yourself for that. Actually going through the process of finishing music and then packaging it such that you can share it online is an amazing thing. So you've done well to get a track online in the first place. And if you finish a whole load of tracks, you've done incredibly well. And then when you start to get people liking your music, or if you get a comment on one of your tracks, that's an amazing thing. When somebody has been affected by your music so much that they want to comment. Obviously, if it's a positive comment, not a negative one. But celebrate the small wins. You know, the idea of these vanity metrics, you know, likes and downloads and streams, you're never going to win looking at those in comparison to other people. There's always going to be people with loads more of all of those than you. It just is. You're just never going to compete with those. Ultimately, they're fairly pointless. And the only real comparison that you need to do is in your own journey with yourself as you move forward. So is your work showing some progress? Are you, engaging with people, and that's resulting in more comments, building an audience slowly over time? That's the only thing that really matters. The numbers don't matter. So finishing a release, the first play, the first like, the first comment, all these things are amazing milestones, and you must just take a moment to congratulate yourself for getting to these points, and don't just gloss over them and always be looking to increase your numbers all the time. Celebrate the small wins. So number 5, lean into community. So this follows on really from celebrate the small wins. This is something that I found particularly good initially on SoundCloud. It is a community there, and so you will get people commenting on your tracks. And if you enter into a conversation with those people, say thanks for their comments, or what was it you liked, or look at their music, comment on their music, then there is a reciprocal effect that goes on there. And it's well known that one of the things that often comes out of SoundCloud when you start to build relationships on there is that there are a lot of collabs as well, collaborations. So a lot of people who post music on SoundCloud end up working together, making a track together or an album together. There are a lot of those type of collaborations on there. You never know what will come out of those relationships. There might be a gig, there might be label releases. You never know what might come your way from responding to people who comment on your tracks and following up those things. So whatever platform you're on, really, if there's a messaging system or a commenting system, take advantage of those things and make sure that you reply to everybody and try and lean into those conversations and those relationships. Lean into community. Okay, so the final one is number 6, and that is build an ecosystem. The unfortunate truth these days in 2025 is that it's pretty much impossible to build a music career and to make money from just sharing and then selling your music online. As I said earlier on, so much music is shared to the streaming services every day, hundreds of thousands of tracks. You're just not going to be visible in the huge sea of new music. So you've got to differentiate yourself and make yourself visible by offering people lots of other things. So this is what most musicians do these days. They do a lot of different stuff around their music to bring people in to hear and listen to their music. They build, for want of a better word, they build a brand around their music. And that can be all sorts of things. It can be making products like sample packs, preset packs. I make my pivot cards that are made to help musicians with creativity. What is it that you can do? What is it that you can make? And then what services can you provide? If you've got a lot of skill on an instrument, can you make videos and teach people how to play that instrument? Videos, sample packs, PDF guides, you know, video tutorials, workshops, and then coaching, you know, one-to-one coaching. These days, to be a successful musician, you have to like build out into that kind of ecosystem in some way in order to attract an audience through those services and products that then will make your music more visible. So over the last few years, as I've realized that is the case, that's what I've done. And that's why I've now built the WHIRRINGS YouTube channel and my Substack site, because there's lots of things that I've learned along the way that I can share that might be helpful to other people. So that's number 6, build an ecosystem, which is really what you have to do these days. So that's it for my little rundown of 6 ways to cope when you've got a very small audience or no audience listening to your music and you're working hard and you're getting frustrated. You can try some of the things in here. And in the words of Rick Rubin, here he is, Rick. In the words of Rick Rubin, use what's helpful and let go of the rest. This is not truth. This is just the things that I've learned and the things that have helped me over the last few years. All different types of people working in different ways, making different types of music. These are not going to work for everybody. They're only going to work for some people, but you might find something in there that can help you a little bit. So that's it for this one. I hope that was helpful to you. And if you do like what I do on the channel, there are lots of ways that you can support the work that I'm doing here. You can obviously like and subscribe to this video. That lets YouTube know that you've enjoyed the video and made it right to the end. You can go to my Patreon where you'll get videos like this early and ad-free, and you get lots of other things just for a few pounds a month. If you go to my Substack site, you'll find my journal. It's like a newsletter journal, so you'll always be able to find out what I'm doing there. And if you sign up to a paid subscription to my Patreon or my Substack, you'll get a coupon so that you can buy all my recordings just for a few pounds. So there are lots of different ways that you can support the channel. So let me know what you think of these down in the comments, or if you've got other methods that you've used to cope with not being seen, not having a large audience online, how to cope with those low numbers. Please put them down in the comments below. So that's it for this one, and I'll see you next time. Cheers, thanks, bye.